Forward to get to the gap. With MagMongoSlade. Shoot. He don't miss.
What's going on? Paul Heyman has a lot of people upset, very angry. After his appearance on Monday Night Raw, there was a Twitter exchange in which Paul Heyman made a extremely vague reference to Aaron Bushnell, the United States Air Force serviceman who self-immolated in public over Palestine. So let's get into it. An account on Twitter, right after Raw aired, about 11 something at night, tweeted out, Paul Heyman of the WWE is trending higher than the libtard who set himself on fire yesterday. And by higher, he spelled higher H-I-R-E. So that should tell you the level of intelligence we're dealing with here. Paul, now he didn't at Paul Heyman. He just wrote Paul Heyman of the WWE is trending higher than the libtard who set himself on fire yesterday. Paul Heyman then responded by saying, my tribal chief, Roman Reigns, People's Champ The Rock, Solo, Jimmy Uso, and I set the ratings, the box office, and WWE Universe on fire every time we appear. And that got people extremely upset. He said we set the box office and the ratings on fire. So now people are extremely angry with Paul Heyman. And let's get into it. Let's get right into it. There's no point in waiting. You know they're crying. You can hear them weeping all outside. I can hear them. Fuck you for making jokes about Aaron Bushnell. It's Bushnell, by the way. It's always free Palestine. I'm not going to state too much of an opinion on the young man setting himself on fire outside of this is the very thing that Ayn Rand was talking about when she talked about altruism and about people basically making sure that there are things, ideologies, other people's that are more important than themselves. And more like, no matter how you cut it, is his family better off with him setting himself on fire, or were they better off with him still being alive today? I mean, the rest of that is unimportant. I really don't have a dog in the race when it comes to Israel and Palestine. I would just say I work with suicidal people, and we don't ever support the suicide or the suggestion that suicide is a positive thing, or that is the answer to a question, or that is courageous, or that is heroic, or we don't support martyrdom because it just gets people to do more of it. I mean, if you want to incentivize things, you turn people who do horrible stuff into heroes. I don't believe in doing that. So, but I have no horse in the race. Beyond the most deplorable aspects of this tweet, publicly laughing at the expense of a deceased serviceman as a representative of a company that has long-standing partnership and commitment to its military seems irresponsible. Well, aren't you the guys who pretty much every week or, every other day, you talk about this same military who supposedly raped a woman and covered it up? You guys believe that. And trust me, there's a lot of Americans who don't think that highly of the military. There's not a lot of Americans who are very positive on the military these days. Read the tweet, Paul. He literally makes reference to it in his tweet. Be for real, man. These people are extremely upset about this. Fuck you, free Palestine. Man turned a political immolation into a Twitter wrestling promo. Well, I would imagine setting yourself on fire is worse than tweeting, but I don't know. There's still time to delete this, you carny bozo. I don't think he should delete the tweet at all, actually. And as of right now, the tweet is still up, so positives. He didn't read the tweet, is in quotes. He literally mentioned fire as a pun. You guys are so stupid. No. He's not. Other people are not stupid. It is that he vaguely referenced it. It's not like, he set himself on fire or anything like that. I love the people who continue watching WWE but pretend to be shocked by Heyman agreeing with ultra right-wing talking points. Ultra right, he's a Jew. This guy is screaming free Palestine and says that they're living in some kind of occupied territory. And Heyman is Jewish. And this guy set himself on fire. I'm sorry. What's ultra about making a vague reference to somebody who took the extreme position of setting himself on fire? Here's the weird thing. There's no wrong way to be a crazy leftist, I've noticed. If you're a pedophile, you're a racist, you're genocidal, homicidal, suicidal now, you want to take parents' rights away, you want to, all this sort of stuff, it's all just a big old thumbs up. There's just no standards whatsoever. You would think that people would stand up and say, maybe you shouldn't set yourself on fire. And that should be universally acceptable, that you don't set yourself on fire. But apparently not. Apparently it's okay to set yourself on fire, because to disagree with somebody who set themselves on fire is an extreme position. Not the idea that somebody set himself on. It's not funny. It's ridiculous. It's the ridiculousness that makes me laugh. Here's another one. Paul knew what he was doing. I refuse to believe this wasn't an intentional way to try and undermine what Aaron Bushnell did. What Aaron did was a brave act to help bring an end to the ongoing genocide and oppression of the people. Fuck Paul Heyman and free Palestine. Is any one of those people freer today than they were before he poured gasoline on himself? If the answer is no, then what did he do it for? I don't see it. I'm not seeing your point here. I'm not seeing your point. I think I'm missing it. You might want to explain it a little bit more to me. Paul, did you read the tweet you quoted? You might want to delete this. I don't think he will. I think he's doing okay. Paul, you deserve to spend an eternity in the deepest pits of hell. Aaron was a hero who sacrificed himself to protest the genocide of the Palestinians, and you are making some jokes about it. Fuck you. Genocide of the Palestinians, their population is increasing every year. We went over this already. Their population increases every year. There is no genocide. We can stop lying. If you want to be involved in an issue, you want to talk about an issue or whatever, tell the truth. Okay? You can say what's happening to them is wrong without using extreme language that is untrue. Unlike other people, you can look these things up and you can see that their populations are increasing pretty much every year. So that does not happen in genocides. Has never happened in the history of genocides that the population has increased every year. It literally doesn't happen. And to call a guy a hero for setting himself on fire, I'm sorry. Heroes inspire you to want to be like them. That's not what a guy who sets himself on fire, that's not a guy I want to be like. But then again, I'm not a crazy leftist, man. It is what it is. Shameful and classless. If you are appalled at the tone deaf tweet, please consider donating to healpalestine.org. healpalestine.org. Sure. I will donate nothing. $0. This is absolutely vile. This isn't some bullshit wrestling storyline. It's real life. Aaron Bushnell died a horrific death protesting an ongoing genocide, and you're using him as a punchline. Fuck you. Free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. Again, no genocide. And protesting is not the highest form of anything that you can do. These people greatly overvalue protesting. These people who are gluing themselves to the street, they're throwing paint on priceless works of art, all this horrible stuff, marching constantly, blocking traffic. This stuff is not what you were born on earth to do. This is where the right, the conservative right, they say things like you have a God-shaped hole in your heart. That's where this stuff comes from. These people either get dogs because they don't have children, and then they start adopting people, entire groups of people, because they don't have a family and they don't have a church or anything like that. So all of a sudden they start adopting people that they've never met. I'm going to adopt Palestine, all of Palestine, into my heart. It's like, no, just go to church or something. Go find something productive to do. Don't set yourself on fire. Don't be ridiculous. Go literally find something, anything else to do. Okay? You can care about the issue, but these are not your pets. These are not your family members. You're not under attack. This has nothing to do with you. And to try to make it about yourself is, well, typical of these kinds of people. Aaron Bushnell, a 25-year-old person, died from the result of self-immolation. And you are out here making a mockery of it. Absolutely fucking disgusting. I'm sorry, he did that to himself. That's the word, self-immolation. All right? He did it to himself. He's not a victim. He did it to himself. All right? I don't know what to tell you. And people don't want you to say that it's mental illness. And I agree, it's probably not mental illness. You know, most people I know who are mentally ill, they've gone through some really traumatic experiences that pushed them to the point of trying to commit suicide. Give you a good example, because I work with mentally ill people. Woman, she's 50 years old. She decides that she's going to take an entire bottle of pills. I don't even know what the pills were. And she took those pills because her 20-some-odd-year-old daughter didn't wake up one day. You know, it was sudden, a real tragedy because it was completely unplanned. Nobody expects 20-some-odd-year-olds to just drop dead. And in shock and in mourning and in horror, she swallowed an entire bottle of pills. She survived, clearly, and she ended up in the hospital. That's somebody who suicide is a real issue because they're dealing with some real deep trauma. It's not politics. You're not going to vote your way, bomb your way, or anything out of that situation. That's real people who are really upset about something. It's not a political issue. Moving on. Whether or not you are playing a character, it's absolutely disgusting that you, quote, tweet, which mocks a U.S. Air Force member, Aaron Bushnell, who gave their life in the form of protest against genocide. This is the respect that you show the U.S. military. I remember when these guys went over to Vietnam and they were fighting, and some of them got absolutely destroyed. Some of them got strung out on heroin. Some of them died. And then they came home and were called baby killers and were spit at. We have all sorts of soldiers sleeping in the streets. They are mentally ill. They are without housing. They are just generally down bad. And we're giving hotel space to illegal immigrants rather than U.S. servicemen. Please save it for your human candle. I have no interest in these people and their absolute phony patriotism. Now, all of a sudden, these guys care so much about the U.S. military because one guy set himself on fire for a cause that they care about. This one doesn't have anything to do with Paul. It's just humorous. I still don't know why people are crying. Let me stay out of it because the IWC cry about anything. They cry about everything. I don't know, man. I agree. I agree. Well, this just won Most Disgusting Promotional Tactic Award, and it's not even March yet. Well, how is this a promotional tactic? What are they promoting? Oh, I guess he is kind of promoting himself in the bloodline. But is it a promotional tactic for you to set yourself on fire? That seems pretty disgusting to me. Okay. Humanity at its finest. Ratings and box office over actual human lives. What a world we actually live in. There's nothing Paul Heyman can do about that. There's nothing Paul Heyman can do about this guy setting himself on fire. What is this? What is Paul Heyman supposed to do exactly? You know, and is he not supposed to feel a certain way? Again, anything that's essentially pro-Palestine, Jews take it as being anti-Israel. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but that's how they take it. And in this situation, this guy was talking about you being occupied territory and all this kind of stuff. And then is Paul supposed to have sympathy for this guy who is essentially anti-Israel and those are Paul's people? Is he supposed to feel bad about this? I mean, the guy did it to himself. It's not like somebody forced him. That's the thing. Like, he did it to himself. And apparently for some people, they think he was of sound mind and body. Well, any decision you make when you're of sound mind and body is something you wanted to do. That means he wanted this. So I don't have too much sympathy for somebody who set themselves on fire, for God's sake, for something that had nothing to do with them. Here's something that I've seen quite a bit, and it's pretty dumb. So Paul Heyman will get mad at someone calling Chris Benoit his not. I guess it meant boy. But he has no problem with joking about a person lighting himself on fire in support of Palestine. Make it make fucking sense. Okay, Chris Benoit murdered 2 people. He took his time and meticulously over a course of a weekend, murdered his own child, and then murdered his wife. I'm sorry if that's not the same as setting yourself on fire. I don't care what your reasoning was. Somebody who assaulted and murdered a child versus somebody who set himself on fire. Completely different circumstances. This is not apples and apples as a comparison. You give sympathy to the people who are really victims, the people who are really dead, because somebody else killed them. People are always going to ask the question about how much sympathy you should have for people who kill themselves, especially when one kills himself over politics. Seems pretty silly to me. So apparently Paul tweeted something else. Oh, this is from Instagram. From the desert to the beach, thank you, my tribal chief. I'm guessing this is supposed to be like from the river to the sea reference, which is what a lot of people say when they're talking about freeing Palestine from the river to the sea. So he's saying from the desert to the beach. Interesting. People continue to be very angry at Paul, by the way. You all really thought you were going to find a way to cancel Paul Heyman? Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. While I agree that this was in really bad taste, that's exactly what he practiced in ECW over 25 years ago, in a time that would drive this generation nuts. He continues, I like to reinforce that this just might have been the most repulsive, detestable thing that Paul Heyman could have posted on social media, and that he might be held in contempt by his employer, TKO. But he's been controversial since 1994. Trust me, this isn't that shocking. Why would TKO care? That's my question. I mean, you've got this guy, Sami Zayn, who's on the roster, and he's constantly saying all kinds of stuff. He's under complete and total protection. But Paul Heyman makes a vague reference to fire, and all of a sudden he's supposed to be held liable. He's supposed to be held accountable. Like, what the hell are you guys talking about? He didn't even really say anything. It's not like he openly mocked the guy. He just continued with the reference that was already used. Fuck Paul Heyman and fuck the people who are defending what he said about Aaron Bushnell. Apparently saying Chris Benoit is your boy isn't cool, but making fun of a guy burning himself alive isn't. Well, Chris Benoit is a murderer. I guess Aaron Bushnell was a murderer too, except for he murdered himself. So, I mean, it's a completely different circumstance. I don't know what more. What do you want? You did this to yourself. This guy did this to himself. It seems to be pretty ridiculous to me. Yes. I figured if we looked long enough, we'd come across some gems. Mansour, Arabic pro wrestler. He's Saudi Arabian, by the way. He says publicly supporting Palestine will get you fired, but taunting a serviceman who made the ultimate sacrifice to protest the murder and maiming of tens of thousands of children is completely acceptable. Got it. Really? Who has been fired for supporting Palestine? Certainly it wasn't you, the guy who WWE protected when you were making fun of Jews. Do you all remember that? Guys like David Bixenspan were really upset about Mansour making fun of Jews. He used to do the greedy Jew face. I don't know if you guys really remembered that, but it was an event that happened before he signed to WWE. He was making gestures about Jews being greedy and evil and all this sort of stuff. I think it was during one of these crazy Hollywood guys' live streams or something. And WWE not only hired him, but didn't fire him and kept him on the roster for who knows how long. The guy never really got over outside of his own country. Then he gets fired. Now all of a sudden he's Mr. Arab. He's, super Arab. Okay, fine. I mean, at least he has a horse in the race, but so does Paul. What makes anybody's opinion on this invalid? There's going to be plenty of Arab wrestlers like Sami Zayn and Mansour who are going to have certain attitudes. There are going to be guys who are Jewish like MJF and Paul Heyman who are going to have certain attitudes. My thing is, and I didn't mention this before and I probably should have, this Aaron Bushnell guy was wearing his uniform that represents the United States and set himself on fire. That had nothing, in a war that has nothing to do with the United States. Not really. The United States gives Palestine money, food, drugs, guns, and they give Israel money, food, drugs, guns. I mean, they've been supporting both sides of this conflict the entire time. The idea that it's the Zionist war machine. It's like half the reason Palestine still exists is because of the United States. We have been playing both sides of every single war for forever. The idea that there's one side, like if truly, and believe me, if the United States wanted to get rid of the Palestinians, they would have done it 60 years ago. It wouldn't still be going on today. And it's certainly not a genocide, for God's sake. But at least Mansour is correct. This is the maiming of children. And there are children in danger. So maybe you should tell the people who are shooting rockets at Israel to stop shooting rockets. Maybe you should tell the people who are hang gliding from planes or whatever and attacking Jews to stop doing that. Maybe you should stop. I should not see any videos of Palestinian children with guns talking about killing Jews or throwing rocks at them or anything like that. I should not see any of that crap, and yet I do. I don't even go looking for that stuff and I can find it. I have yet to see a video of Jewish children talking about killing Arabs. I've never seen that, ever. If you've seen it, send it to my direction. But I've seen plenty of videos of Arab children talking about killing Jews. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And again, I don't have no horse in the race. I'm just saying, from my perspective, this is what I've seen. If you've seen something else, let me know. And here's the oddball thing. I've seen so many people, and I haven't read any of them, but I've seen so many people mention in this video about Tommy Dreamer wanting to kill Paul Heyman. And there's one tweet that says, "Where's Tommy Dreamer when you need him?" or something to that effect. So you wanted Tommy Dreamer to throw his life away to murder Paul Heyman, but you have the moral high ground. What did I say earlier? That there is no wrong way to be a crazy leftist. You could be homicidal, want other people to commit murders on your behalf. This is what I'm talking about. You disagree with a guy politically, you want him killed. You want him bumped off. What kind of nonsense is this? This is just flat out insane. No, never mind. Let's just get back to this. Wow, I'm shocked a slimy fuck like Paul Heyman would tweet this. The man that went on a tirade and accused a TV executive of fucking animals because he wouldn't air his shitty garbage show. The man that didn't pay most of his big names. Wow, truly shocked here. Paul is a carny. That much is a fact. That's a fact. If we agree that Paul Heyman is knowingly posting baits as a heel character, we should also acknowledge that he sees Israel as the heels. For example, he could have been pro-Hamas for heat, but he either realized it wouldn't work or that it would offend the wrong group of people. What? That tweet didn't have fuck all to do with Israel. He didn't say anything about Israel. He didn't say anything about Israel. Paul Heyman has, he's in his mid 50s or something like that. A guy who has, done the tribute to the troops. He's done all kinds of stuff. For a serviceman in uniform, again, I can't believe I let it slip my mind for so long. A serviceman in uniform who supposedly represents the United States of America set himself on fire in protest over two foreign countries fighting each other. Well, one foreign country and their neighboring pseudo-states fighting each other. Something that had nothing to do with the United States. Whatever. Whatever, man. It's just silly to me. I get being disturbed by Paul Heyman, but y'all do realize Ari Emanuel's dad, Benjamin, was part of the Irgun, an Zionist terrorist organization. If you waiting for WWE to care about Palestinians, you will be disappointed. Paul Heyman just said the quiet part out loud. Ari Emanuel's dad was in a Zionist terrorist organization. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I'm not a big fan of Zionist terrorists, I can tell you that much. But I also am not a fan of setting yourself on fire, nor am I a fan of attacking random Israelis just for being Israeli on country that you think is yours. I don't support any of this stuff. Again, I don't have a horse in the race. Okay, Paul Heyman is disgusting cretin for exploiting actual human death, despair, and destruction for cheap heat for a wrestling program. He should be ashamed of himself. Politics be damned. Okay, fair enough. Not everything is in good taste. I agree that it was probably in poor taste, but my goodness, seems kind of ridiculous. So pretty much everybody who's mad at Paul Heyman, I don't know. It seems like a lot of these people are hypocrites. They don't normally support the U.S. military. I don't understand why they're supporting somebody setting themselves on fire. I understand feeling bad about it. I can understand sympathizing with the message. But there has to be borders to this thing. At some point, you have to say, this isn't what we do. We don't set ourselves on fire. We don't, this idea that turning yourself into a suicide bomber or, kamikaze, self-immolation, that this is the right way to go and that this is the appropriate form of protest. As I've said throughout this video, I don't hold protesting in that high a value. I don't think anybody does. I think people look at protesting as a whole look at me kind of thing where you're trying to make it about yourself. But then there's a passing link to some other issue, whether it be Palestinians or blacks or gays or trans people or whatever. It's all about getting attention on yourself mostly. So turning yourself into a human candle didn't do anything but draw attention to you, because now people are extremely interested in you. They've heard that sloganeering before. They've heard people yell free Palestine. They've heard about colonization and genocide. None of that stuff is new. None of that stuff is going to change anybody's mind about anything, especially if they looked into this stuff themselves. They're not going to change their mind. So as soon as you lit yourself on fire, it became about you. It became about you being an extremist. And everything that I've seen thus far has been whatever he posted on Facebook, what he posted on Reddit, what he's been posting on Twitter, his last hours, all that kind of stuff. Almost nothing new on Palestine. His family was better off with him being there, not with him setting himself on fire. So a bunch of Arabs he never met and doesn't know can use his death for propaganda purposes. I think that the human life is worth more than that. If you want to turn your life into Hamas propaganda, go for it. But I don't think that other people should feel obligated to support it, nor do I feel people should be obligated to respect it. That said, it is in poor taste to make fun of the guy. I'm not certain that's what Paul Heyman wanted to do. I'm not sure he looked to do that. But this guy set himself on fire in front of an Israeli embassy, yelling "Free Palestine." He posted all kinds of stuff about how Israel doesn't have a right to exist. So a Jewish manager who says, "Oh, you think my people don't have a right to exist?" Well, not even fuck you, just a vague reference to the guy. And to have Mansour come out, the guy who in his younger days that he ended up apologizing for, he was doing what they call the happy merchant meme, which is pretending to be Jewish and rubbing his hands together. For him to get all offended and huffy about it is very interesting, especially since no wrestler has ever been fired from WWE for being pro-Palestine, even though some of them are openly pro-Palestine. People like Roxanne Perez, for instance, like Sami Zayn and others. They have never been fired. No wrestler has ever been fired for being pro-Palestine. So that comment was pointless. And it does nothing but continue the tribalism of people thinking that, there's an oppressed group. There is no oppressed groups. There's people in terrible situations, but there are no oppressed groups. You could end your own oppression tomorrow by stop voting for terrorists, stop doing business with terrorists. And I actually agree with the pro-Palestine side. If we're being honest, the government shouldn't be giving billions of dollars to Israel. We shouldn't be giving Israel, but at this point is like, being 40 years old and still living with your mom. And still being breastfed at that. I mean, Israel's been around for 70 years and they're still being breastfed by Europe and the United States. I actually understand this issue. I'm not going to set myself on fire, and I don't support anybody else to set themselves on fire either. It's dumb. I'm not going to support people hang gliding and murdering innocent people. It's dumb. It's wrong and it's evil. There's evil on both sides. Yes, on both sides in it. Because I don't have a horse in the race. I can look at this thing pretty clearly and say, hey, these guys are pretty terrible. You know what? These other guys ain't the best guys either. If they want to kill each other, fine. But leave the kids out of it. And it's seemingly both sides are not interested in they're not interested in letting the kids go. You got the Israelis. They've got an 18-year-old guy sitting in prison because he won't sign up for the IDF. I wouldn't want that kid as a neighbor, but I certainly respect his right to not want to be in the military. And in the United States, and Palestinians have got kids teaching them to throw rocks and shoot guns at Israelis. Like, everybody over there is insane. If you're willing to burn yourself for those people, I don't think you have much to live for. I would imagine everybody else has something to live for. Find something you really love that really means something to you, that's going to keep you tethered to this earth. And that's the end of my TED Talk. Thank you guys. I'll talk to you guys later.